Morning ledges. So I've taken everything off my charts, just like I did last week, so we can go through things from a clean chart perspective. We'll start out with the Aussie dollar, because I'm getting a lot of questions about this, whether I'm going to short it. Now, of the majors that I look at, this is the outperformer this morning. It clearly looks like it's a risk-on environment. The S&P's pushed higher, a new all-time high. It's looking pretty strong this morning. And I'm a little bit concerned as to why this has undone so much of yesterday's move so quickly. So I'm being overtly cautious coming into this, because there is a cracking level, and I'm going to watch price as opposed to putting an order in. But if we just go through and mark out the chart in relation to the previous highs, you can see that we had a weekly high here, and we had these weekly highs over here, and this was the extreme high of the range. And if we move down to the daily, you can see that yesterday we SFP'd the extreme high of the range, and we closed beneath that lower high. So it does, on the face of it, look pretty bearish. However, we are undoing this very quickly, and again, it does look very much risk on this morning. Now, the clear cut level is right at the low of this shooting star, and you can see that that lines up almost perfectly with the first swing high back on the weekly that we failed at. So I would be fully expecting that price would slow down there and possibly even reverse. You can also see that it is the right shoulder of a head and shoulders pattern on this hourly chart. So that level is very, very key. But I'm a little dubious, again, based on the risk on and the extent of this move up so quickly, that that's actually going to hold for a full-scale reversal. I expect it will slow down there, but I'd really like to see the price action before engaging. Now, ordinarily, what I'd love to see is, and I don't think we're going to see this, an inside day form here, and then come in, say tomorrow, and sell a level like that as we break the high of the inside day. I mean, that would be an absolutely bread and butter trade for me. But I don't think that's going to occur. I think we're going to engage with this level shortly, and again, I'd like to see what price does before just simply offering it there. If we had created an inside day and came into that level tomorrow, then I'm sure, as most of you know, I'd be setting the trade up like this, putting an offer at the low of that shooting star, stop beyond the high, and at least looking for it to come down to these lows at an absolute minimum, to then trigger shorts into the market who have seen the follow through from the initial SFP and are selling beneath the head and shoulders neckline. But again, call it instinct, it's back here a little bit too quickly for my liking. Now again, I don't expect it to just surge straight through that. I think it could well stop here, and it could perhaps drift. We have got a lot of news out later this afternoon. We've got GDP from the US, we've got unemployment claims, we've got fucking durable goods orders, we've got Powell speaking, so it's quite a busy day in terms of news flows later this afternoon. If it really looks like it's reversing here on the hourly, then I may well engage with it, but for now I'm just going to leave this and watch it. I'm going to take this off because I don't want to confuse anyone that logs in and hasn't heard me say that and thinks that's a trade. But this is definitely key here. Ordinarily, when you have a very sharp move down like we did yesterday, you don't usually see it pull back this far. It's already undone half the move, at least. If you were to take a fib from the high to the low, you can see that over 50% of this move has been undone already. What you'll often find with potential opportunities like this is that you don't necessarily have to risk missing the entire move. You just may get an entry at a later stage if it does reverse from here. So again, if it looks like it's turning off this area and it's forming bearish price action, I might engage, but even if it comes off relatively quickly, there are areas that were a little bit sticky overnight that we may be able to sell a break and retest of. I will just wait and see. But I think a lot of the market participants seeing that move yesterday will want to come in short, and I've seen many times like this before where the market will just undo the entire move, and it's starting to smell a little bit like that with this sustained move up that we've had overnight and now following through into the morning. So I'll just annotate these as the weekly swing high points so that you know on a lower time frame what they are. Again, remember, I'm color coding levels and just annotating them so I can see down on the hourly what's happening. In terms of where ATR is coming in on the day, you can see that it is just beyond that weekly swing high, and again, if you were to come in at this low with a stop above that spike high, you are protected essentially by ATR. But again, I'm taking a more cautious approach here. In terms of a forcing point for traders, I'd obviously keep my eye on this low here, which I'm going to put as an hourly level. But again, if we were to get through that, I think that's where a lot of traders would be coming in short. So if we do manage to get a short before there, that's probably where I'll be trying to get out, and then seeing what we do around that level, whether we break it and keep going, and I might have to then potentially think about re-entering from underneath, but that's all a long way in the future at the moment. So I make decisions, as you guys probably know, at the close of every hour. So I wait for the hour to close and then look at where we are in relation to structure and my idea for the day. So, when I'm seeing it start to move back a little bit like this, I'm not thinking about engaging. I'm still waiting for the close of the hour. But I do think even if this level fails and we do move to the upside, I do expect it to be somewhat sluggish around here. But as a swing trader, where I'm looking for bigger moves on the hourly time frame, it stalling round here and perhaps drifting back is not good enough for me. I've got to think that there is enough potential for this to fully reverse. And again, at the moment, I'm not totally convinced, but at the risk of repeating myself multiple times here, this is definitely the area to look at. Maybe what I'll do is I'll draw a box there. I think if I put the Trading View short position tool on, it might confuse people that log in. So let me just draw a box here. And the low end of the box is where I anticipate price will be sluggish and potentially turn. And the high end of that box is where I would think that the short idea is really off the cards if we breach that. So there's no surprises to see it backing off a little bit here, but that doesn't make me want to engage on the short side. Aussie, again, out of the majors, is the outperformer this morning. Your question, Ibrahim, is this the best setup from the dollar pairs? Well, it's the most obvious, I think. Again, I know I've just said this a few minutes ago, but a lot of people ask me about if there was one setup that I would trade that's just very high probability, that always gets my interest on a chart. It would be if this closed as an inside day, selling a break above the inside day into a level like this. But at a minimum, that would be a play for tomorrow. But there you would obviously be then taking advantage of potentially trap traders that buy through an inside day high and get caught. And you've got a clear target on that as well, which is the other side of the inside day. So that's one of the reasons I really like that setup. when I see it. Let's move on from there and let's look at the good old New Zealand dollar. Now obviously you see the same thing here, and we've covered these levels before, but you've got the weekly swing high here that we failed at. We didn't reach this swing high over here. I will mark it out, but it hasn't been reached yet, as you can see. And below market, the very obvious high of this hammer here. So I'm going to put KPI and then high of hammer, so you know why that's a KPI, key point of interest. So again, swing failure, much like the Aussie dollar, but didn't take out the range highs, so not as much resistance cleared as in Aussie dollar. But when you see this kind of move down through a key weekly level, you're looking, or you should be looking at that level to be tested from underneath, and then coming down and seeing what's there on the hourly time frame and looking for a clear level with a thrust candle through it to sell at. Now obviously just above that level again you can see this spike low, shooting star, lining smack bang with ATR as well. And this is actually more the kind of price action that I would like to see after a big down day, you know, where it is drifting higher but it's not showing huge strength like the Aussie, which is really outperforming this morning. There's no potential for an inside day here because we've already taken yesterday's low out, but I'm still very interested in this, and you know me, I hate the New Zealand dollar, but I'm very interested in that low. What you'd have to be a little bit concerned about there is if it trades into that low today, it is already recapturing the weekly swing high that it's failed at. So, you know, if you were to get short here, you've got a little bit of room, not a massive amount, but you've got a little bit of room, and you'd need to see it get back down through here very, very quickly. So that's another area that I'm going to mark out. Again, I'm not going to use the trading view tool. I don't want to confuse anyone because an offer's not going in there yet. Now, in regards to this KPI that I said is significant on the weekly, it's past ATR, but you can see that there is no level there of old highs that are untested and naked. You had this little area here that it's pulled back and tested at least a couple of times in price, so that wouldn't interest me in terms of just putting a bid down there. It's certainly an area though that you'd want to have marked out, because if we see a higher time frame reversal off there, then we may be able to get a higher time frame bias for a potential long trade. But again, just to confirm, it's not a level that I'm just going to put a bid in at. And New Zealand dollar is the second best performer of the day in terms of percentage increase. So it's lagging the Aussie, but it's doing better than the other majors. So in terms of the question of what kind of price action would I like to see in, say, the Aussie dollar, shooting star off of there with a thrust candle lower after it would then get me in likely short at the low of the shooting star with a stop beyond the extreme. Bearish engulfing here, or just a reversal and then breaking structure to the downside. So I mean, let's say that the market pulls back here and creates support, then has a test of this level and thrusts down through that support, then I potentially come in short. There's a lot of variables though in terms of what I look for. All I can really do is tell you if it looks right, but I mean, there's a few ideas there. As I've said so many times, I am okay with missing things. Some people that are trading just cannot stand the thought of potentially missing a move. If it was to hit this and just collapse very quickly, they'll be very frustrated and very annoyed, and it just won't bother me at all. And you can't afford to let it bother you. Remember, the big news drivers are this afternoon as well. So if you engage this morning and it stalls around these levels, for example in the Aussie dollar, you are at the mercy of it not going very far before that afternoon news, and then you have to sit through that potential volatility. Let's move on to cable. So you can see in cable there is no swing failure on the weekly like there is in terms of the other pairs that we've discussed. As I've said many times, when I look at a chart like this, I do start to notice obvious things to me that again might be some way away from price, but I'll always notice the high of a hammer like this for a potential reversal. Here I'm noticing this swing high that we broke up and out of, and it's now the low of the developing week. I'm just keeping my eye on the other things at the same time. So in terms of that weekly structure, it's certainly worthwhile being aware of that, because there's definitely a sign of strength there. When you look at where we are here in terms of putting in an engulfing, to my mind, yes, it's an engulfing. It's not off of a particularly key level. In fact, if we just have a look back here at these highs, this area here from February 2022, and let's just draw a daily level in there, and I'll put it as a daily swing high, and we'll just make sure we get the highest high, which we have, and then you look at where we are in relation to that. We've stopped just ahead of it. Now remember, I was talking about a short order in cable, and I still like that trade idea, but again, if you look at this, even though it's a bearish engulfing, it's not making me think, right, this has got to collapse. All I'm seeing is really the price turning ahead of some old highs back here, and still in terms of weekly structure, we're above it, and we've tested that weekly swing high from above and pushed higher, and now we're seeing a bit of a pullback. So obviously on the hourly time frame, you're going to see levels, you're going to see this inflection between resistance and support, but that's, in my opinion, in no man's land. If you're looking at an inflection point, it wants to be a point where you believe traders are trapped from, which is more prominent in, say, the Aussie dollar. That's why Aussie dollar is the very first pair that I opened, because I think it's more obvious as a potential trade if the market's going to turn. So I don't really think the context is right here. Now, if we extend past ATR to the downside, are there levels below market? Sure, but the one I think it's probably most pertinent to talk about, because we can talk about these later, if it does extend, is the order that I've already spoken about, which is, if you look above the range highs and above this ATR, if we do undo this move, traders are, without a single doubt in my mind, going to be puking en masse. So you'd look for them to puke through here on an extension of ATR, and then there is this just very old level all the way back here that is waiting. Now I don't think there's any chance it's going to get up there today, but I like this trade idea a lot. You can see this low, so let me just mark it out, that low there, and you could use a stop beyond the extreme and then look for it to pull back to these highs at the moment. It may well create another FTA before then, but I certainly like that idea a lot. I'll just put that on a daily and drag it across. And you can see on the daily as well that I'm selling just above these old lows. So again, from February 2022. So the level is naked. Yes. It might not be on your feed, it is on mine. And again, putting it on a weekly chart, just for more context, you can see the lows I'd be looking to sell, and then the weekly pullback high here, and pretty much the high of this developing week that I'm looking to get out at. Now again, why am I saying there's no chance of that happening today? Because what kind of a move would we have to get all the way up there? But let's say that we move higher today and stop just underneath this high, then that would be, in my opinion, a really nice trade. A breakthrough structure here, taking us into old weekly lows and looking for the reversal short from there. I think that would be a very nice play. So that's something I'd obviously set up well ahead of time and just wait and see if and when it occurs. Now, the only thing that would put me off that is if either we drift into it or, you know, we turn ahead of it and the R diminishes to an unacceptable level, which for me is really below 1. Below a 1-to-1 is where the chance of me taking the trade is a lot lower. Will I always rule it out? No. There'll be times when I'll go for a 0.9R if I think that the level is a cracking one and it's got an absolute ton of confluence. But in general, I want to be feeling that I'm getting at least the 1-to-1 from it. So if I can't find a naked level, Scott, that is invalidation for me to take it blind. So by blind I mean just putting an order in. That doesn't mean that I won't watch it in terms of the price action to see if we get a reversal there. If we see interesting price action there, then I may well trade it. So it doesn't stop me watching, it stops me engaging with an order directly at the level. And again, let me just annotate these. I can't believe I've deleted all my levels again. Things I do for you guys, eh? So you see that Aussie backed off a little bit there. You'll see that maybe clearer down on a 5-minute. Not that I watch a 5-minute, but just for context here, you can see it's got just ahead of the level, backed off a little bit. Now it's trying to go on the next leg. Really does seem quite strong here. So I'm just treating this with a little bit of caution. But don't get me wrong, if it's going to reverse, it's going to be in this box and probably at the low end of it. So I mean, if there's an area on the chart to watch, this is absolutely the one that it is. I know some of you guys that are trading on the lower time frames as well, you know, may be able to frame a trade around that. Look at this 5-minute shooting star for a start. But again, this isn't what I do. But keep your BDI on this level. Yeah, we've got an hour to go until the Swiss news, and then that thing is going to go crazy. We've got the rate statement at 8:30 UK, and then the press conference as well at 9. If Aussie pushes through the shooting star and the first weekly level, would you look for a long? No, it will be past ATR. I think if it does push through here and start, you know, getting closes specifically through the high of this, it's very high probability that we'll take out the high. I wouldn't expect that to be today, but that may mean that I'll come in tomorrow looking for longs back at this level. But as a rule of thumb, and I very, very rarely break this rule, I don't trade past ATR. So I don't go with the flow past ATR. So if we move to the upside through an upside ATR level, I won't be a buyer. And there's very few circumstances which I'll break that, but they do occur from time to time. Usually when there's a huge news-based move. You know, if someone sets off a fucking bomb in central London and the market's collapsing, you're not going to be like, well, it's past ATR, so I can't really sell it down here. But, you know, on an average day, I'll be following that rule. Somebody made a post yesterday, a guy that was just saying he was kind of feeling really disheartened by looking around and seeing how everybody performs and kind of comparing himself to all these leaderboards that keep popping up and everything, and he was saying it was taking a bit of a mental toll on him. And I didn't respond to it, but I read it and I was just kind of thinking, well, you shouldn't be comparing yourself to others for a start, but one of the primary reasons you shouldn't compare yourself to others is because they all chat shit. So you shouldn't worry. You have to assume that maybe 90% of what you see is total bollocks. Even with people posting payouts and stuff, I mean, you don't know how many accounts they've blown or how many accounts they've got free for being an influencer or whatnot. So you just got to play your own game and not worry too much. Comparing yourself is always a recipe for disaster. There is no finish line until you retire. See, Aussie just again has backed off for an hour and now taking out that hourly high, just coming into this level. I am so skeptical about this level holding, which is why again I don't want to offer it there. Maybe it's going to work, we'll have to see. I'm not going to claim that I know exactly what it's going to do up here, but I'm waiting and I'm watching. How to know when to go full-time trading? That's very difficult, because I think I've told you the story before of when I had put in around about 3 months of consistent profitability, was growing my account, doing really well. I decided to leave my job. So I handed in my notice. I was super excited to be starting out from home as a trader, full-time. It was a real exciting time for me. And I left the security of my job, rocked up in front of my screens, hands rubbing together. Now I'm a full-time trader. What a ledge. And then suddenly the pressure just hit me of, fuck me, I've got to do this for a living now. You know, I've got to find setups, I've got to make a salary. I haven't got the biggest account, and this was now before you had funded firms. It was before I got into prop, so I didn't have access to any other capital, and the pressure really took its toll. And I was trying to force setups and just didn't do well, and I had to go and basically beg for my job back. And that was the end of my attempt to become a full-time trader for the first time. And then when I left the second time, that was when I went into Futex. I thought, well, now I've got capital, I've got more success in terms of proving that it works whilst I'm in a full-time job, and that made it a lot easier for me. When you go full-time and you've got to make a living from it, it's very difficult. So you need to know that not only have you got a track record under your belt, and I only had 3 months when I first made the transition, but also that you've got the capital to be able to not have to force trades. When we first joined prop, they said that you should have enough money to live off, that if you don't make any money, you can pay yourself a wage for 6 months. Yeah, I've backed traders myself. I've actually backed a few big names from X. Can't tell you who for privacy reasons, but I have backed some traders, and I've also got a few traders backed by firms I've been at. None of them made any money. None of them. I backed an ex-bank trader who showed a lot of promise initially, and then they suddenly got obsessed with calling a top in the DAX, and they kept shorting it, stopping out, shorting it, stopping out, shorting it, stopping out, and just completely did their fucking conkers in record time, and the account went into massive drawdown, and I pulled the plug on it. Let's have a look at Swissy now. Not a pair I've traded in quite a while, the Swissy. There's a lot of lows below market, but you can see certainly on this weekly that we're very, very range bound at the moment. as a basic frame of reference. Mark out the last weekly swing high, obviously mark out the low of this shooting star, and the key low there where traders could potentially get trapped from. So those seem like the key areas. KPI, low of shooting star, here we go, loss again, I'll change that at some point. Weekly swing high, weekly swing low. The action will be about to kick off here shortly. A very obvious point for the market to reach for, and it doesn't really take a rocket scientist to say that because we're trading just beneath it, is of course this daily swing high here. And with a strong day yesterday, I would see it as almost a given that we take that out. Not that I want to be long, but trading just beneath it before key news on the back of a big wide-ranging day like this makes you think it's going to take that area out at a minimum. You see this obviously huge area up here on the daily, which is the low of the weekly shooting star, way past ATR, but I mean even with this news coming out, I can't see us getting up there. That is a long, long way away. But the news is out in 15. I didn't trade this yesterday, by the way, but I'll point something out because I see it. Note how you had these lows in the middle of the range and then your last low pre-break, which is there. Look, we thrust up through it, and again, remember how I've said before that we'll often come back to the low and then key off it, which we did in the session almost perfectly there. And even if you weren't convinced about that and you're waiting for price action, you see the hammer here as well. And remember, that was occurring yesterday in the dollar Swiss at the same time that euro dollar was SFPing the massive weekly high. So potentially, a good opportunity to have caught there. Normally that type of setup's a real no-brainer for me if it's occurring on the daily. So rather than just taking out the last low pre-break on an hourly, if it's thrust through a level on the daily, then I'm all over it. And again, we have to go back to Bitcoin where I last did that. I'm very much a fan of framing my trades on the higher time frames. That doesn't mean to say you can't come down and trade them on the hourly, and this is probably a pretty good example of how you can do it. Marking out the hourly level, either buying blind or waiting for price action, and then obviously with cross-market analysis looking at the euro dollar potentially topping a dollar reversal and getting involved. But that's long gone now. I wouldn't bid this high now, no. Not within the constraints of ATR and back in the middle of a range on a big news day, no. I wouldn't bid that. When I start filling out the playbook on the website, I think you'll get a really good understanding of how I trade, because I'll show you, like I say, every execution under each of the plays. So I mean, Aussie dollar at the moment, although it still hasn't hit the level, if you think about what I said this morning, this is where you're expecting price to get a little bit sluggish and slow down. We're not expecting it to just go parabolic through here, but it's not about whether it slows down and gets sluggish, it's whether it's going to do a full out reversal, which I'm still not convinced by. But it shouldn't surprise anyone that it's slowing down here. It's undone a lot of the move, it's gone vertical overnight, especially coming into early this morning, and it's now stopping at the absolute key level on the chart. The question that you're asking me, Justin, about the bearish engulfing on cable, I don't like it. And the bearish engulfing is not from a location where I think that traders are potentially trapped from. In fact, it stopped just ahead of old range highs. So if we're going to play on dollar strength, I think the pair to potentially play it in will be the Aussie, because it has got the clearest level. Although, again, it's the outperformer from this morning. But this level stands out to me in a way that cable doesn't. Do you not think the head of hammer trap on cable is not interesting? What head of hammer trap? Oh, here. Well, obviously the context of this is interesting because it's pulled back to test the approximate area of the old weekly swing high and reacted from there. But in general, when I'm considering hammers as reaction points, a hammer should come after a move lower, a bullish hammer. This has come in an uptrend, So no, I'm not attaching a huge amount of significance to that high. So far in terms of what we looked at, you can see two areas that I'm interested in: New Zealand dollar and Aussie dollar. No real interest in cable, personally. And then in terms of the dollar Swiss, no interest in this, but it is going to be a big mover today in all likelihood. So we will see. Things can develop. That's why I've got a box called developments in my plan. Right now I don't see anything clear in terms of the weekly time frame, the daily time frame. There has been a lot of chop, but a day like this might give us a very clear direction and a convincing play for tomorrow. Biggest level on the chart is up here, in my opinion. And again, if we see that today, I'll quit trading and become a fucking bus conductor. But it's certainly a level to watch. I've got to stop saying things like that. Do I ever base a trade on a diagonal level? Do you mean a trend line? Rarely. I'm not averse to them if there's a very, very clear-cut one. They're very subjective. I mean, a lot of things are subjective, even the drawing of levels, but when I see people's trend lines, I really think, mate, who fucking drew that trend line? Stevie Wonder? People like going, look at this amazing trend line here. Look at that. It's beautiful. And I'm like, how the fuck did you come up with that, mate? All right, here we go. Swissy. Hello, you cunt. Harvey.
But thus far, we've seen a cut to 1%. So the S&P says they're prepared to intervene on the FX market as necessary. So prepared to intervene on the FX market as necessary. So they've eased monetary policy and in terms of the adding some growth forecasts as well. But again, the kicker so far being that 25 basis point cut. Did see some fairly pronounced action in Euro Swiss on that, that is beginning to pair on the language that they're prepared to intervene in the FX market as necessary.
All right, let's have a look at euro dollar. This level, we've spoken about it before. KPI. Head of hammer. And then the big high that failed yesterday. So the weekly swing high. Now we're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place on this weekly chart. Reacted from here, caught at the highs. So that already makes the outlook quite tricky. But certainly yesterday you can see that we're right back in this recent range. Is it easy to call the direction on this daily time frame? I don't think so. I think that you want to keep your eye on this zone if we're thinking about shorts. So the range high here to the range low there does come in ahead of ATR. So, I mean, if you were looking for an ATR-based trade, it would be the low of this shooting star with a stop beyond the extreme. But that's certainly the level above market to watch, much like the other pairs that we're watching for a potential reaction. I'm not bearish enough to just come in there and offer that, certainly because it's not past ATR and there's no real clear bias for me. Again, you can see there is an SFP of the highs, but we are really still trading within the range at the moment, and we've come off a higher time frame hammer high and seen sustained support around that area. So it doesn't look totally clear cut, but if it gets up there, then we'll watch it 100%. So to the person that asked me, are you going to buy the head of this hammer? And I said no. Bear in mind what it did. So I mean, if you're just buying a single hammer high in the middle of a range with no clear weekly or daily bias, sometimes it'll work, sometimes you'll get carted straight away, especially over key news though. I did think this high was going to go. I'm surprised it didn't take that out. What am I doing when I'm being so quiet? I'm watching. What do you think I'm fucking doing? I'm not sitting here having a wank. Fucking hell. I'm watching everything. You watch the interplay of everything. It's like being a conductor at a fucking orchestra. Got to compose a fine tune by watching everything going on at once. I've got fucking 8 screens here, mate. No, but I'm keeping my eye on just the reversals that are happening here in euro dollar. You know, you see this wick developing in cable, Aussie turning ahead of the level, Kiwi turning just ahead of its weekly swing high. Just trying to keep an eye on it all. Yeah, that's the level in Swissy up there, and that's the one you want to watch. 86.16. Okay, so my favourite pair, dollar Canadian. Currently an SFP in the developing week here. Broken close below that low on the daily, came back pretty strong yesterday. This is a key area of interest. Right where we've reversed from this morning. Because it's these prior lows that we cleared. But above it you've got the last low pre-break. So again you can see that phenomenon of being caught between a rock and a hard place. Caught between these two levels which are key. This is the last low pre-break of this huge spike, and now the market going bid at prior support. So weekly SFP in play as it left this low untouched on the daily. I think it breached it by 4 pipettes, but 2 very clean lows there. Action's still relatively muted here, though. Again, in terms of that last low pre-break where it comes in on the hourly chart, you can see the thrust through it, returns to it, finds near perfect support. So again, you want to remember that pattern because it does happen a lot. But again, I think you're caught here between two areas, not a whole lot of room to play for. Generally, I wait for areas like this to resolve before engaging, unless something really leaps out at me. Busiest day this week so far has been Monday. 5 trades for me on Monday. 3 in the Bund, 2 on the swing. I really didn't see that coming. Monday's usually a quiet day, so that was a real fucking outlier. How did you go about learning to read footprint charts? I just watched them. So when I first started looking at the footprint, it was with Market Delta that was the charting platform at the time. I think one of the courses on my website is old enough that I'm using Market Delta in it, and Market Delta as a company has now gone under, but the footprint is the same. You know, if you're looking at it on, say, a different charting provider like Sierra, it's the same thing. It's just Market Delta no longer exists. But they had a few educational videos on their website, and I watched a few of those. Did you know, Tom, that the FTSE 100 probability of tagging the weekly open is 88%? I didn't know that because I haven't tested it on the FTSE 100. Thank you for telling me, and thank you for sharing it with everybody, Stepan. If you can just let me do the teaching now, cheers. Some action in the Bund, Alexandros is saying. Mate, if you call that action, you've really done your arse. Look at this fucking 5-minute chart. If that is action, then I'm going back to bed. There's a reason I haven't been talking about Bund. You guys are like, look at this market, look at that market, and you wonder why I'm not saying anything about it. If there's something fucking happening, I'll be talking about it. You'll see I'm pretty picky with the way that I trade. I mean, you'll know that by now. It's probably a takeaway that you'll have from EFL. I really wait until everything lines up. And that's the way I've always done things. So far in this whole month, I've only done 8 trades on the swing strategy. And that is not a lot. That's coming in at 2 a week, which again is well below average for me, but that's what I've done this month. I never feel the compulsion to trade. Like I said so many times, I come in with the whole idea of I don't want to take risk. So now show me what you've got. Show me something good. Show me price turning off this level in the Aussie dollar. You know, show me something that makes me think, oh, I've got to engage here. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep passing and passing and passing on it because, as I said before, when I hit something, I'm hitting it in decent size. Bun's starting to wake up a little bit. I'll tell you why I'm not a great fan of Bunds today in terms of the action. Let me bring it onto the screen. Let's do some Bund analysis. I know you all love Bund. So, have a look at this, right? First thing, you've got an inside week, so you've got range contraction here. So you've got your inside week high there, and you've got your inside week low there. And then specifically beyond the highs, you can see these other 2 highs here, this weekly swing high and that weekly swing high there, but let's forget about that for a second. You've got this contraction. Now on the daily, it's looking like this, and you've now got another fucking inside day, which we'll put in. So you've got an inside day high and an inside day low there. But I've been having my eye on the low of this shooting star. Initially we cleared it and I was somewhat bullish. Now we've got back beneath it and I don't have a read on the weekly or daily time frame where this wants to go. Now a lot of the time that just puts me off really paying too much attention to it because I do like to have a higher time frame read if possible, and I don't have one here. Now does that mean that something won't develop at some point? No, not at all. But where it is at the moment, right now, what's there really to do? What's leaping out at me and saying you've got to take a position here? There's always levels somewhere, but a level doesn't mean you have to trade. And this is why people say, oh, you know, levels, some work, some don't. You can't make a living trading levels. No, because you're trading every fucking level like a cunt. That's why. How many levels have you seen me call? That should tell you everything. Now, 34.79's up here. I'm going to put this in purple. Is the previous week's volume value area high. Why have I just put the text in purple? I've completely done my arse there. So if I bring this onto the screen, you will see the prior week's volume value area high is at 79s. So we're trading within prior week's value at the moment. And in the developing week's volume value area as well, with the POC from this week being at 53s, which is here in the middle of no man's land. There's a very small level above it, but I mean, again, these are the types of trades where you can easily get caught. Back in the prop days, a lot of the Bund traders on the lower time frames would scalp those levels, and that's fine if you're a scalper, but you know I'm not. Now going back to the weekly profile, and we've spoken about last week's volume value area high being at 79s, you can see that the POC from last week is at 28s, which is below the current week's volume value area low. So 28s will likely be a sticking point, I would say, and that's just coming in below the inside day low, but there is key support down there. If we moved aggressively through that area, let me just mark it in, then we could potentially look for a short, but you'd have to be careful that you don't get trapped at the inside day low. you can see the support on the hourly chart here. So again, if we're breaking out of the current week's volume value area low and we're taking out the previous week's VPOC and trading through these lows, then yes, I would expect a run on the inside week low and would potentially look for a short. Up here at the 79s, you've got an area that's the prior week's volume value area high, but it's very much contained within structure. Could you potentially get a break and retest of this to play for the inside day high? Possibly. I'd really have to see how it looks if and when it gets up through there. I mean, let's talk through some theoretical examples of what could happen that might intrigue me. Let's say we went vertical through here, created a perfect double top and then started to come back down. Yes, I'd probably buy that area. The prior week's volume value area high, decent inflection point, clear double top for us to take stops through. Something like that would intrigue me. But to come in here and say, oh, break on a lower time frame retest, it's not a terrible trade. It's just that I'm more picky than that these days. Once you start getting involved in level picking, you can find that there's levels everywhere and you start seeing retests of levels everywhere, and I can understand a lot of them, but they're not framed by anything more than there just being a level. There's no real higher time frame narrative. You could look at this level here that we've broken out of and say, right, is that a potential trade? Should we steam in long there? What can you say? It's a 5-minute level. It's also an hourly last high pre-break, and we had an hourly bullish engulfing. Could you potentially take that trade long? But where are we on the weekly? We're in the constraints of a previous inside week. Where are we on the daily? In the constraints of a previous inside day. Is there any clear side of the market which we think the market might make a run on? No. So what have we got down there at 58s? Nothing, apart from a small intraday level. Now, the current week's VPOC is at 53s, so there's definitely a zone between 58s and 53s, and it's a scalp zone. You could scalp that long between 58s and 53s. Let me draw a little box in there so you can see what I mean. Are we likely to have a bid? I would say so, but it's not clear enough for me to come in and say, right, I'm absolutely certain that if I buy this here with a stop underneath that low, that we're going to run up to the highs. It's just not leaping out. I don't want to put people off because, Stepan, you're saying you're looking at that for a long. I know a lot of scalpers that will take a trade like that and they'll take a few ticks out of it and move on. Job done. But I've got to think, how certain am I that it's going to hit this and go through that high before taking out that low? And the answer is I'm kind of 50-50 on whether that will occur. And that's why I don't want to trade it. So what you're saying, Stepan, 50-50 with 1.5R sounds profitable. It is profitable. But how's 50-50 on your mindset? Maybe you're fine with it. I like a higher strike rate on my trades. And I like more conviction than I'm 50-50 on it. But that is me. I'm not trying to create clones of me. I think this is a good level. Should be able to scalp this. See what's going on elsewhere. While I'm keeping my eye on this, just going to put that bun there for a minute. If you look at where buns has come off and you see, it's bounced right off the low end of your range. Remember, the low end of the range is drawn there because that is the developing week's volume point of control, the price point at which we've traded the most volume. By the way, that low at 53s, which is right on the VPOC, was an unfinished auction. It went bid and offered there. If you're looking at a key point and you see an unfinished auction, it's pretty good. So if I just bring on Sierra onto the screen, you'll see 368 hit the bid, 380 lifted the offer, right down at those 53s. What does that show you? It shows you that sellers got cut off. I usually keep my Sierra on sim, by the way, just in case I'm moving my mouse around and I fucking hit market and steam into something. And sometimes my little one sits at my desk with me and she can get a bit fucking trigger happy with the mouse as well. So, not that that makes any difference to your life at all, but I just thought I'd let you know. I had someone the other day speak to me and they said to me, I'm having such a bad time. I've been absolutely crushing it on sim. I've gone live and I cannot make a bean. And I'm like, yes, well, no surprises. It happens all the time to everyone I've ever known, that as soon as the emotions kick in, they can't make a fucking penny. I posted a video. I don't know if I can find this. Let me see. Is it this one? Just give me 1 minute, guys. I've got a really good recording of one of the trainers in prop that went through everyone's results because he had to decide whether to put them from sim to live, and he went through everyone's results and he shows the disparity between sim and live, and you just see these traders that were on sim absolutely crushing it, and then he shows you the moment they go live and they just completely do their ass. It's really, really interesting. And it's not just one trader, like he's pulling up multiple traders and going, look at this guy, this is his sim, now he goes live. What's changed? He's still trading the same strategy. There shouldn't be any difference. I mean, there sometimes is in terms of slippage and things like that, but there shouldn't theoretically be any difference if you take simmers seriously. The problem is that most people don't. They're bolder. They're willing to take on more risk. This guy that was talking to me about the Sim v Live thing, I said to him, why do you think you're better on Sim? And he said, because I don't care as much. I'm not micromanaging trades. I'm not moving to break even really quickly. I'm not panicking that a winner might turn into a loser. I just don't care as much. And I seem to be doing so much better. And I'm like, well, that's the essence of it. Oh, yes, you found it. Right, I'm posting that link. Click that link and watch that while I go and get one more coffee. That's the video that I was talking about. Fucking hell, 11 years old. Anyway, it's a good one. Hopefully you had a chance to watch that, but it's very, very interesting. Now, just going back to the Bund here, have a look at this. You know, again, as I outlined, could you have traded that? Yes. What did we do? We marked out the box. The last high pre-break, your stop would go underneath the thrust because you've got this zone here. You know it's likely to react either from the last high pre-break, and the furthest it should probably go is the VPOC. down at 53s. So you've got the zone marked out there, it's turned right in the zone, your stop would be below the thrust candle, and it's gone straight to target. But why didn't I take that? Because it doesn't leap out at me. But again, as I've said before, you could be a scalper, you can trade that. You don't have to be a clone of me. What you want to take from me is identifying the key levels. We knew this was going to be an important level. We knew why it was going to be important, but I don't have to step up and take that trade. For me, it has to absolutely scream that you've got to buy this, and this didn't scream that I've got to buy it. But for scalpers, for very short-term traders, is that a good level? Yes, and we know why. So again, hourly structure with the bullish engulfing through it, and then the zone marked out from the last high pre-break on the 5-minute down to the 53s. 53s being, of course, the VPOC from the current week. And again, that doesn't faze me at all. I'm not looking at that thinking, fuck, I should have traded that. Fucking should have got long there, man. Easy money. I knew I didn't want to get long ahead of it because I want those bigger picture plays. Now the question is, did you buy that, Stepan? That's the real question that we're all interested in. You're going to say I put you off, aren't you? I know you're going to say I put you off. Oh, what a ledge. Ahmed steamed in. No, Stepan says, I am watching you trade today. Oh, that's a poor excuse. That is poor. You said you liked it. You said you liked it. You said you were looking at it and you didn't go in. You're lucky I'm not throwing you out, mate. So let's revisit what's happening in the Aussie. See, it stalled ahead of the level. Now straight back to it. It seems reluctant to go. And again, that's why, this price action here wasn't making me think I've got to get on board. Little sign of a reversal. It's not enough. Let's have a look at the dollar yen, then we've done all the majors. So you've got the flush of the lows on the weekly that we've seen. Strong move up back into the range here. It is a bullish engulfing. The question is, how high could it potentially go? Again, when you clear a last low pre-break, there is the idea of it returning to that and it being bullish from there. That last low pre-break was coming in there, so we would have that as a KPI, key point of interest. If you look at the daily time frame, see how we break above, we get an inside day, fake out the high of the inside day, trade right back to this level. We actually close a little bit beneath it, but as it triggers this low and that becomes a forcing point, it pulls a swift reversal and takes out the high. So you've got to be very careful when you get price action like that. You really want to see it clear and then get your rounded retest. So if you mark out that low, just put it on, say, a daily time frame, and you come down and you have a look at the hourly, note that you never get a rounded retest. It does clear it and close through it if you've got that point as an extreme frame of reference. You're looking to be bearish underneath it, then it's straight back in the next candle. Can't even make a new low and gets above it. That's why I really look for a sustained move one way and then a return to it with space, because many times you can get kind of caught out with it just popping its head through a level, closing through a level, even on a higher time frame. I mean, this is 11 to 12 p.m. It's not a time of night where you're suddenly going to get a massive bias from an hourly candle. But even if this was in the middle of the day, at a prime time, it would still not be interesting to me because it hasn't cleared it and really made a sustained break of it and accepted beneath it. But the bullish engulfing on the weekly and then, a bullish engulfing off of this KPI on the daily as well, certainly at the moment looks strong. The question is, if it looks so strong, well, where do you get involved in that? You have to be careful because we've got these overhead lows that I initially wanted to go offered at and put an order in and then pulled it because we created an FTA close by, and there's now a little bit of back and fill, and there's no clear level below market to buy into strength here that fits my criteria. Old highs, untested, clear thrust through them, off of a higher time frame level ideally. So the next big level is all the way back down here at the KPI, right? But if we come back there, this isn't going to be looking half as good because we've sat on that level and really retested it and thrust from it. So if it comes all the way back there, there's an argument that this isn't very strong. So what do we do here? Does that just mean like that's dollar yen off the cards? Well, it means that I'm not focused on it. It's not front and center like, oh, I've got to be in dollar yen today, even though I can see that the weekly and daily look somewhat bullish. But it's one of these markets where I'll revert to, let's see what it does. Let's see what structure's created around here. There's no need to steam in up here. There's nothing in price that's telling me this is the point at which you want to try and get long into the weekly and somewhat daily bullish looking picture. If it doesn't set up right, it's just not happening for me. Now again, I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you here. Scalpers, just be aware of obviously this low that we've marked out in orange, 68,699. In the 5 minute you start to see a reaction off it. Now I mean it's 3 fucking pips, so you know what's there to say about that? Nothing. But just see it starting to react a little bit at the level. What I would really like to see here is a full scale reversal in order to get short, and I honestly don't think that's coming before the news. I think the news will be the decider of where this is going. Either we've been completely wrong on this idea that price is going to turn and it will surge right up through here, and that's fine because I'm not going offered like I said this morning, or it starts to move aggressively lower and we start leaving last low pre-breaks and we get on board it. You might see that you get nothing today, and then around 4 o'clock when I'm shutting down for the day, the daily's starting to look super fucking bearish, and I'll tell you guys I'm putting in an order for overnight. I don't know how this is going to play out. I just know that I don't trust it enough to sell it here at the moment. You've got to make your own judgment call though, and then just log it and see how it plays out. Obviously you're here to learn from what I'm doing, but don't get put off by what I'm doing, because as I've showed you this morning, just with Bunds, I said this is a level that you could buy. I'm not buying it, but there's reasons why you could buy this here. It's just not the absolute optimal trade for me, and it's worked really nicely. The area for engagement for me in Bund will likely be if we get a really concerted move through the prior week's volume value area high. By concerted, I mean 60-minute closes that take us up near the inside day high, but don't trade through it. So we kind of top around that area and pull back. I will buy this at the closest naked level on the 5 minute to the prior week's volume value area high. I like that idea. I'm thinking about that idea already. There's an inflection point on the 60-minute chart. If it starts to gravitate towards that inside day high and gets above this structure, I think it will likely take it out. But patience. Patience is necessary here. It certainly is for me. So just as a matter of interest, did anyone take this off of the low of this shooting star? Now's your time to tell me. Don't be telling me after the event. Don't be waiting for it to reverse fucking a point off there and then go, ah, that's where I cracked it. You better step up and say you did now. Ahmed says, I wish I did. Well, don't speak too soon, mate. Ibrahim, no, I didn't take it because you didn't take it. That's poor. Nicholas is in. Okay. There's absolutely no doubt about how big this level is. It is the first weekly swing high that traders are trapped from. It's the low of the shooting star. It's so far had an almost pit perfect reaction. As long as you can mark out these levels, then you're halfway there. Then you've just got to step up and execute if it looks absolutely right for you. Joel, you took it as well? Okay, cool. I'm going to shut up about it now because I don't want to put too many people off it. I mean, I will look to engage if it looks right. It's not ready for me yet, and we're nearing the end of the session, so it might be an afternoon trade. there might be a small possibility that I come back to the session this afternoon with a position in it already, because remember we've got the news at 1:30, but I think that's all an unknown at the moment. No, I'm not going to use a sell stop if this closes as a shooting star. I'll tell you what I would do. If it closes as a shooting star and then moves lower, so we get a thrust candle after it, then I'll offer the shooting star low. I will probably, if that occurs, still keep the stop back here, because this is a pit perfect reaction, so on the news it could possibly revisit that level again. But again, since this hasn't occurred yet, I can't tell you. I don't think we'll close as an engulfing. I mean, anything could happen. There's another 15 minutes to go, but I'm not thinking about that yet. There's definitely the possibility for a trade here in the afternoon session though, and definitely a possibility for a long in bunds if it behaves right. So lots of people asking me, am I interested in crude? Am I interested in gold? Am I interested in BTC? Am I interested in the S&P? If I've got any interest or I've got a trade that's near to triggering, you're going to know about it. There's not going to be any fucking behind the scenes. Oh, by the way, 10 minutes ago I took this position. Have a look at this. I've killed it. None of that shit happening here. Silver. Man, the amount of comments I've heard today about silver. What do you love about silver? Go on, sell it to me. Come on. This is like the Wolf of Wall Street where he pulls out that pen and says, sell it to me. Come on, sell me silver. Sell me why I need to take risk in silver. What's it got? And it better not be a tepid reason. Sell it to me. Come on. If I'm steaming into this, there's a lot of fucking money that could potentially get lost. What's happening? The weekly high is a target. Okay. Let's see. The weekly high is a target. Yes, right. I can see that. What makes you think that's going to hit that, though, before you could potentially stop out of it? Clean last high pre-break below ATR. Okay. So let's have a look. We've got to note this level as well. Okay, clean last high pre-break below ATR. So you're talking about this. Move down to the hourly. You were looking for inside day failure. Well, good luck with that, because there's no inside day here. Who's doing your fucking analysis? Stevie Wonder? So, yes, this level here is not past ATR. So I presume you're talking about this one. You'd refine it down and say that there. Is that a decent play? Just below ATR. Come in there with a stop under that thrust. Now, that's not bad. The question is, do you want to step in off that last high pre-break if we suddenly reverse violently, lose this weekly swing high here, lose this last high pre-break on the daily in a sharp down move, and you pick it up off this? How confident are you that then that's going to reverse from there and go all the way back to a high? If you're looking for it to reverse from here and trade back to this high, it looks better. I don't know that I'd be bullish enough to come in here and look for a clean run through the highs. Let's see how it gets back there. You're selling it better now. I also think you want to keep an eye on gold when this is coming back here, and the reason for that is gold has been going vertical for ages, and when this turns, there probably will be a dirty little flush where it just suddenly shits the bed. And with silver being weaker, it could get really nasty. So yes, it's not bad, this silver. It's not bad, but you'd have to be very mindful of this. So you could potentially set a trade up like this, although I wouldn't put this order in at the moment, but you could potentially set something up like that, and that is slightly less than a 1R. Why would I be getting out there? It's the last little low just ahead of this big level I'd be concerned about. So already looking at that, I'm thinking we're less than 1R, and we're potentially buying after a break through two massive key levels. I'm not going to rule it out. I'm just going to tell you why I'm not putting an order there and why I haven't mentioned silver yet this morning. Aussie dollar. Looking interesting. So, okay, reversal here. Closing as a shooting star off the level. If the next candle is a significant down candle, like a thrust candle, and basically undoes most of this, I will offer the low of that. So don't be surprised if I come back into the afternoon session with a potential short position. But I would offer that low, still with the stop up here for that trade. And then look for a run down here. So the trade would look something like this. Short, stop, initial target, and then the potential to add into that trade, because if I get short there and it starts to roll over, we will feel, knowing how big this level is, that we've really got the market by the balls, and even small levels like this will be an excuse to trade breaks and rounded retests off, because I think if we get underneath here, that neckline of that head and shoulders is going. But don't get too excited. I can't count the number of times I've seen a little reversal like this off a level and an hour later it's at a new high. But yeah, it looks alright so far. It looks okay. We've identified the level. The market's confirming the thesis so far. To your question of, do you really think this is going down now? No. Even seeing this candle off this level, I'm still not like, right, this is it, lads. I'm still fucking waiting for a move lower, and then I'm looking to trade it. Doesn't have to be a rounded retest of the shooting star, no. See that level there? I'm going to keep this on for the afternoon session. I'm going to put close through. Hourly candle, this hourly candle coming here, that closes down through that, I will immediately offer the low of the shooting star. Not on a rounded retest, next candle back is fine. So close through this, you will know that I'm offered at that low. Close above this, don't bank on it, you'll have to see when I come back into the session. But I can absolutely guarantee you if it closes through that on the hourly, I'm going offered there. And still nothing in the Canadian. Again, we spoke about this level being a good one, but you can see, although it's bouncing from here, no real reaction from it. Still kind of caught between a rock and a hard place in that, like I said this morning. Bun's starting to move higher. I really hope that this doesn't do the move before I get back this afternoon. I want to see it trade up here, stop relatively close to these highs, and then roll over, and I'm definitely buying that back here. Can take that to the fucking bank. But let's see. Let's see if it breaks up here and then rolls over and of course leaves us a clean high with a thrust candle to get involved in. Target on Aussie, it ain't going to hit that target before I get back, but the target will be 1 pip through this low, just ahead of ATR. I'll open the room again about 1:30. Cheers, guys.